The suicide rate in this country is on the rise. As a matter of fact, the suicide rate is higher than the homicide rate in this country, if you can believe that. This month's deaths of designer Kate Spade and chef Anthony Bourdain gave a new urgency to suicide prevention. We spoke with 5 people to provide their insight. Each is a suicide attempt survivor. Kris Goldsmith is a former soldier who served in Iraq and now advocates for veterans. Lisa Yob is a mother of 4 who helps run her family's Child Focus Foundation. Desiree Stage is a photographer whose website, Live Through This, is dedicated to suicide attempt survivors. Mental health advocate, that's Kalechi Uboza, is a rape survivor and a journalist turned poet. And Greg Loomis is a father of 2 who promotes mental well-being through yoga, he says. They shared important advice with us and a message of hope. I'm very touched that you would share your story. You should know that we're all here because we do want to learn how to be better and do better. But what is it that we don't understand?
People with mental illness are not monsters. I live with bipolar illness. I have for most of my life. I've lost my my birth mom to suicide. My grandmother to suicide. And I'm a 3-time attempt survivor. Suicide's not a disease. Suicide is not a disease. Suicide is an event, like anything else.
If you've tried 3 times, how do people close to you know he's okay now?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't. My own family doesn't trust me to this day.
What so many people are wrestling with when people make the decision to take their own lives is how could they do that to their children? How could they leave their children behind? Is that the wrong question for us to ask?
Absolutely. You are not in any way thinking that way.
What are you thinking?
In my mind and in my case, I was seeing how my life had spun out of control, and I didn't know how to reach out. And so when I saw that I just was hitting bottom, and I thought of the burden I was going to become to my kids, that's when it was rational to me that they would be much better off without me.
So in your mind, you weren't leaving them, you were actually thinking you were a burden to them and that they would be better off
They would
without you
be
as
in
their
a
mother.
better situation.
It's okay to not be okay. This is normal.
It's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay. I had spent a year in Iraq from ages 18 to 19. My job involved photographing of mass graves. And it haunted me in ways that I couldn't understand, and I didn't have the vocabulary to describe. I had lost purpose in my life. I had lost control of everything. Attempting suicide was an expression of control over my own destiny.
We all go through something that's very jarring to us. What's the difference between someone who just powers through and someone else that just says, I can't take it anymore? Is there an answer to that, Desiree?
I think we all have a different capacity for pain and our ability to withstand it. What could be life-threatening to me in terms of suicide could be your Tuesday.
It's definitely specific to people. Why we go through it, how we got here, I have to say it's very different for each person, every person.
I'm learning from the experts in your field that it's incorrect to say they committed suicide.
Yeah. To say that you committed suicide is similar to you committed rape, or you committed murder, or you committed adultery. It's a sin to commit something. Suicide is a symptom, it's not a sin.
You know, before I came, I was talking to experts and they said you should not ask how they attempted suicide. And I said, why is that an impolite or inappropriate question?
It's been proven to be unsafe.
It triggers people.
Yeah.
I read a story about how deeply affected Kate Spade was by Robin Williams' suicide death.
Yes.
And we know that Robin Williams' death was covered.
Yes.
We knew exactly how he did it, where he did it, what he did it with.
Yep.
And Kate Spade did it the same way, and then we described it again, and then we had Anthony Bourdain.
Yep.
Why make that gore factor the important part? What about the pain?
Sometimes we're thinking, well, I don't want to talk about it, because if I ask her how she's doing or ask him how he's doing, that'll just make him feel really bad. And then I could trigger something. Should we ask you? Should we go and talk to you about it? What should we do?
There's a myth out there that if you ask someone if they're suicidal, that it will trigger a thought of suicide. That's not true. If the thought wasn't there, you're not going to make it there.
You're not planning it if it wasn't
You're not
there.
planning it there. And I think what people tend to do because they're afraid is say, you're not thinking about doing something stupid, are you?
Yeah.
And then I now know that you think that's stupid, so I'm not going to tell you I might not tell you the truth. So it's really actually really like, hey, you seem really down. Have you had thoughts of harm? Are you okay? Do you want to go for a walk?
Did all of you hide how you were feeling?
I absolutely did a fantastic job of always being on point.
Yeah.
I was the OCD mom, the OCD COO.
But see, this is what scares me, Lisa. If we don't know you're in trouble, how are your friends and your family supposed to help you if you all hide all of this from us?
Because we need to know that it's safe to tell you. If it's not safe to tell you, we're going to hide it. And I don't want to say we have to hide.
But you do
I'm making a
hide.
choice to now step out, even though I've lost my job for disclosing that I had a mental health issue.
What happened?
I took on a job at a pediatric office, and I was just doing some clerk work, and the person who attacked me reached out to me, and that triggered me. I started having thoughts of suicide, and I told my boss, I said, hey, I'm having thoughts of suicide. And she says, oh my God, Kelechi, why don't you go home? Why don't you take care of yourself? Do you know that I went to work the next day and I heard her telling the doctor, we have to fire Kelechi, she's crazy.
You heard her say that?
I heard her say that. I had openly shared that, and then I lost my job. So there is a real risk to sharing.
I heard, guys, about that everybody or many people have a safe plan.
I have a safe plan.
I would be curious to hear, what is your safe plan?
My resources taught me was to have like a core group of 6 people, and they received a safety plan that basically says, if I'm not leaving my house, if I'm not returning your phone calls, if your texts go unanswered for days at a time, if you see me overly happy or appearing to be overly happy, those are symptoms that you need to reach out and ask me how I am.
My plan is less formal. The person who attempted suicide at 23 and the person I am now at 35, they're completely different human beings. I have a beautiful, perfect life now. I have an amazing wife. I have a new son. And so when things get hard for me, and they do, I'm not having suicidal thoughts, but I'm depressed, I just tell everybody. I'm like, hey, it's not awesome today.
Greg, do you have a safe plan?
The only plan I have is when I wake up every morning, I find a reason to live that day.
What was your reason today to live?
To do this. Somebody will see this and they'll say, if he can do it, I can do it. And they'll go get help.
Wow, Gayle.
Yeah,
mean,
I have to
wow.
tell you, I didn't know any of them, of course, but I was so touched by every single one of them. Sharing their story so candidly. We really should figure out a way to put it all online because it is so good and so important what they had to say. And they said, you're not giving anybody ideas, and if you suspect something, you really do just have to ask them. Kris said to me, if you're good with your words, use your words. If you're a hugger, go and hug. The worst thing you can do is to say nothing.
Right.
Because you think if I don't call attention to it, it'll go away. It won't.
Well, I know we've talked about it, and you're wanting to find more understanding
Yes.
about this. And I think that's real. I learned more from listening to them
too.
than I think I have in reading everything I've read, just about the idea of how you know when someone is safe, how you know when someone is in trouble. I mean, incredibly useful information. Yeah.
And that expression, making it safe to tell you,
Yes,
creating
that
a
struck
space
me.
in your relationships with people you think are in trouble or might not be, where it's safe for them to tell you. That was amazing to hear.
Yeah, because you would think of the famous people that we know, you think, well, surely they had friends and they had family, but if you don't feel safe, they said, they are not going to say anything to you. That was very, very eye-opening to me.
Really?
I liked all those
Amazing
guys
I
so
really
much.
did, too.
Liked them all very much.
Incredibly strong people.
And
Really
I'm
strong
grateful, too,
people.
guys, that they shared their story, that they felt comfortable enough and safe enough
Yeah.
to sit out in that park and talk to us so openly. Bravo to you, Andy Merlis, who edited that piece, because he had a lot to work with. If you or someone you know is in crisis, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. They said this is important too, because I said, who's going to call a Lifeline? They said, you'd be surprised how many people call. At 1-800-273-8255. You can also find more information on our website at cbsthismorning.com.